I'm going to check the line now to make sure that we have all of our commissioners on the line. This is Sandra Shelton with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. Chairman Amos. Chairman Amos, are you on the line, sir?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Putnam. I am not calling your roll.
I'm here. I'm here.
Secretary Hunter. Secretary Hunter, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Commissioner Potter, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Commissioner Conway, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Commissioner Ritz, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Director Byrd, please begin with your opening statement.
This is Director Victor Byrd. This meeting of the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission is being conducted by teleconference, and 6 of the 7 commissioners are attending remotely by teleconference. The time is now 10:16 a.m., and the 6 commissioners are now participating in the meeting by teleconference. The meeting will be monitored to ensure that each commissioner is audible to each other and the public. If any audio connection is lost or interrupted, the meeting will be stopped until the connection is restored. If the audio connection is not restored within 30 minutes, the meeting will be deemed adjourned at the time the connection was lost and shall be reconvened at 1:30 p.m. today. If an audio connection cannot be restored at that time, the meeting shall be reconvened on April 23rd, 2020, tomorrow at 10 a.m. If the audio connection is not restored at this time within 30 minutes, there will be another attempt to reconvene the meeting at 1:30 p.m. on April 23rd, 2020. This pattern will repeat until an audio connection is restored. This meeting shall be electronically recorded. Documents and materials reviewed by or relied upon by the commissioners during this meeting are available at www.oac.ok.gov and may be found in the upper right-hand corner of the home page of our website, where there is information about today's meeting and the materials relied upon by the commissioners. The notice has been filed for this meeting, and the agenda has been posted in compliance with the Open Meeting Act. The meeting is being conducted in compliance with Senate Bill 661, recently passed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor, which amended the Open Meeting Act to allow meetings by teleconference. I would also be remiss if I did not thank Secretary Gatz and his staff for their assistance in our conducting this meeting. Mr. Chairman, we are ready to begin.
Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Chairman Dave Amos. I hereby call this meeting to order and ask everyone to please mute their microphones, and I have a few instructions to help this meeting go smoothly and quickly. Again, please keep your microphones muted. Only the members of the commission and staff presenting will be recognized to speak. And remember to announce your name before speaking each time so we can keep an accurate audio record and minutes. Please direct your questions, comments to the chair, and I will recognize you. And Andrea, would you please call the roll?
Yes, this is Andrea Post. First Congressional District Commissioner Kevin Potter.
Here.
Second Congressional District Commissioner David Conway.
Here.
Fourth Congressional District Commissioner Lindy Ritt.
Here.
Fifth Congressional District Commissioner Dave Amos.
I'm over here.
At-large Commissioner Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jerry Hunter.
Here.
I want to note also that 3rd Congressional District Commissioner Mike Ray is unable to attend today's meeting. Chairman Amos?
Thanks, Andrea.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. And item 3 is approval of the minutes. So I need a motion.
Commissioner Putnam, I move for approval.
Second, Jerry Hunter.
Andrea, please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Abstain.
Chairman Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Great.
Motion carried.
Item four is the director's report. This is Chairman Amos. Director Byrd.
Director, are you there?
Victor?
Yes, I'm here. I apologize. This is Director Victor Byrd. Commissioners, as you know, we have been teleworking since Monday, March 16, 2020. Staff has adapted rather well. I would say that we have pretty much kept business as usual, even though we have only been in the office individually at times to take care of things like signing grants, signing permits, and doing other processing checks. But during this time, we've continued to do airport grants, process pay requests. We've actually had 2 final inspections that our airport engineer, Ben Nagavi, went out to do those final inspections. We know how important construction is during this unprecedented time. We've signed APA permits and processed them. We've had project preparation meetings, mostly virtual at this point, pre-bid, bid opening, and pre-construction meetings. We've done an immense amount of policy work, almost 100% on the Federal CARES Act and the airport funding and funding for aviation and aerospace businesses. And I've also started a new practice, Oklahoma Airport Alerts, to keep our airport community up to date during this time about what is going on, and initially to rally our airport community as airport funding was not part of the original CARES proposal. Also for status reports and that effort and other things of that nature. We've served as a coordination point between airports and Senator Inhofe's office. There's been a number of governor's executive orders, one in having a 14-day self-quarantine for travelers coming in from areas of community-wide spread. Those were primarily New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Washington State, California, and Louisiana. We have also worked on aviation and aerospace education grants. As you would imagine, there's been a number of issues with respect to those programs that are usually being conducted during the spring and into the summer with the Stay Safer at Home order here in Oklahoma. Many of those programs have been pretty much put on hold or unable to actually conduct their program this year. B on my director's report is about I have to really take my hat off to the American Association of Airport Executives. They had daily COVID-19 updates. At the beginning, as I noted previously, funding for airports was not part of the original administration proposal for Phase 3 COVID-19 relief. That set into motion quite a monumental effort on the part of the airport community across the country to get airport funding. I'm sure most of you know that the airlines were immediately thought of and the impact there, and that's been dramatic. Traffic counts across the country are down between 96 and 98%. On an average day, you'll have 80 to 90,000 passengers going through TSA checkpoints compared to a year ago of approximately 2.5 million passengers. There's been nothing really ever like it. We're back down to 1954 passenger count levels being transported by commercial airliners. That there's been reporting on these daily calls on the funding, FAA updates, how they are implementing the CARES Act legislation. And we have also discussed, and I think there hopefully will be a future infrastructure funding project, infrastructure funding investment for not only surface infrastructure across the country, but airports as well. There have also been General Aviation Airports Committee telecons that have been weekly, sometimes twice a week during this time. There's an emergency management working group that's been fairly invaluable insofar as airports taking measures to protect the safety, health, and welfare of their workers as well as their passengers. And then there's also been airports-only briefings. This has been somewhat of a weekly, every day, most of these web meetings, and sometimes 2 or 3 for some of the other committees I mentioned. There's also been Aviation Week web meetings that have more focused on the aviation and aerospace businesses. Of course, we have 1,100 plus of those in Oklahoma, and we have attended those as well to learn about the funding in the CARES Act for those businesses and in any future funding that may be available. There's been any NBAA conference web meetings that have also been very important to us, the National Air Transport Association and the Aeronautical Repair Station as well. I would note with ARSA, have had several conversations to learn more about the funding available for aviation businesses and other airport contractors and subcontractors. That would conclude my report, Mr. Chairman, and I would stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, this is Sandra with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. I believe that we need to have Andrea call the roll to ensure a quorum before the item 5 and 6 is presented.
Andrea, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Andrea Post. First Congressional District Commissioner Kevin Potter.
Here.
Second Congressional District Commissioner David Conway.
Here.
Fourth Congressional District Commissioner Lindy Ritt.
Here.
Fifth Congressional District Commissioner Dave Amos.
Here.
At-Large Commissioner Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-Large Commissioner Jerry Hunter.
Here.
As noted before, 3rd Congressional District Commissioner Mike Ray is unable to attend today's meeting. Mr. Chairman, I have confirmed we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Item 5 is the financial report. Chris?
This is Chris Wadsworth. In the document sent to you all by Andrea, you'll find the financial information. On the first attachment of the financial summary, you'll note that as of March 31st, the Commission had an ending cash balance of $4.7 million, with encumbrances totaling $5.3 million. Estimated revenues for the remainder of FY20 are $3.4 million, which will leave us with an estimated cash balance of approximately $2.7 million at the end of this fiscal year. The amount of remaining expenditures in the airport construction program that could be incurred during FY20 total $3.8 million, provided funds are available to proceed with the projects and the grants are approved. Our total expenditures during FY20 are at $4.4 million. On the second attachment titled Income, our total statutory revenues deposited for the month of March totaled $176,701.58. Total statutory revenues deposited through March 31st of this fiscal year total $3.7 million, which compares to $2.6 million for the same time frame last year. However, we do expect that we will see a decline with our revenues in the coming months due to the economic impacts of COVID-19 and the drop in oil prices. On the third attachment titled 3-Year Average, the last page shows a 3-year average comparison for our revenues received from aircraft registration fees, excise tax, fuel tax collections, and specialty license plates, and you'll see that we are currently about $800,000 less than what our 3-year average is. I also wanted to give you all an update on the budget conditions at the state level. The Board of Equalization did meet this past Monday and declared a revenue failure for the current fiscal year, with general revenue fund collections forecast to come in around $416.9 million below the original estimate. This shortage is going to be made up with funds from the state's rainy day account, and agencies have been told that they will not have to cut their appropriated budgets during these final 2 months. For next fiscal year, which begins July 1st, the state is currently projected to have a 20% decrease in appropriated revenue, and it's estimated that the state's appropriated budget will have to be cut by approximately 7.5%, while also using the remaining $534 million in the state's rainy day fund. So right now, appropriated agencies have been asked to submit their projections for budget cuts from anywhere between 3 and 7%, and that is being done at the current time. So there are certainly difficult times ahead for state government that will require agencies to tighten their belts and make some sacrifices, and we will keep you all informed over the next couple of months as to what the specific impact will be on our agency's budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Okay, thanks, Chris. Chairman Amos here. We've got item 6, the legislative congressional update. Director Byrd.
This is Director Victor Byrd. Thank you, Commissioners. The first part of this is I'm going to focus on the congressional, what's been happening in Congress with respect to relief due to the COVID-19 pandemic. That is the CARES Act, which I know many of you have heard about. As I noted a moment ago, originally there was no airport funding in this proposed legislation. That was very alarming due to airports have been right behind airlines, and not just commercial service airports, but general aviation airports as well. Traffic and activity has just come to a standstill. I noted a moment ago, it put into motion a monumental effort, part of our own association, the National Association of State Aviation Officials, AAAE, AC Airports Council International, North America, many of the other aviation alphabet organizations, and not just looking out or trying to advocate for their own members, but certainly for airports as well. There was a recognition that airports their revenues are plummeting. And I have to give a special salute to our airport community. Our airports here in Oklahoma, they really weighed in with our congressional delegation, which, by the way, was completely supportive of airport funding. Most of the focus was in the Senate because that's where the legislation was. Senator Inhofe, Senator Langford were very prominent in making sure that airports did receive funding. But our own airports, their communication to our delegation, I've never really seen it ramped up the way it was due to this unprecedented challenge. It was really admirable. Ultimately, the act that passed and was signed into law by the President on March 27th had $10 billion in airport funding available for those airports in the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, the federal system. Breaking that down, $500 million, this is a very important part though, $500 million was provided to make sure that all airport improvement program grants funded by 2020 appropriations would be 100% federal share. So no local match required, which is usually it's a 90-10 proposition. No local match required, therefore relieving us. Many of these grants, as you all know, we provide 5%. So we provide half of the required local match of 10%. That relieves us as well, which I'm sure we're gonna welcome that. I know the airport sponsors welcome that because that frees that money up to use for operations, for debt service, payroll, etc. So that is a very important part. That is available to all airports, commercial service and general aviation airports as well. There is about $9.4 billion altogether. First part of that is $7.4 billion for commercial service airports across the country. That's divided up this way. $3.7 billion is based upon 2018 enplanements as a percentage of total 2018 enplanements. $3.7 billion is based upon each airport's debt service as a percentage of the combined debt service of all commercial service airports and each airport's ratio of unrestricted reserves to its respective debt service. $2 billion is available for commercial service airports, but only for primary airports, those that their primary purpose is commercial service. And that's based upon modified apportionment formulas. $100 million is available for GA airports that are in the federal system based upon their asset study classification. So a national airport such as Oklahoma City, Wally Post, Tulsa Riverside is eligible to receive $157,000. Regional airports are like OU Westheimer, Enid Webdring, probably about 10 to 15 of those. They're eligible to receive $69,000. Local airports such as Ada and Elk City are eligible to receive $30,000. Basic airports like South Grand Lake and Purcell are eligible to receive $20,000. Unclassified airports in the federal system are eligible, like Carlton Landing, Arrowhead, and Cheyenne, are eligible to receive $1,000. All these grants are 100% federal share, all the CARES grants. They are very flexible. They're not AIP grants. And they were also very importantly funded by the general revenue. This comes at a time when there's been suspended the ticket tax, which is the main funder, probably 95% of the Airport and Airway Trust Fund. So they're very flexible. They can be used for any lawful purpose consistent with the FAA Airport Revenue Use Policy. So operation expenses, payroll, debt service, anything of that nature, they can be used for. And the grant process is going to be streamlined, very quick. Applications have already been pre-filled out by the FAA's airport district offices across the country. Ours has been very good to work with. I have to salute the FAA for the way they've handled this. They've been very methodical with their rollout, provided a lot of explanation and guidance on many other issues too impacting airports. The FAA has done an admirable job, just like it did when 9/11 happened. So I really have to give a salute to the FAA. Just quickly on our commercial service airports, Oklahoma City Will Rogers will receive just under $22 million as part of this funding. Tulsa International will receive a little under $16 million, and Lawton and Stillwater are both getting probably right around $1.2 million apiece of the CARES Act funding for airports. Let me stop there and ask if there's any questions. All right, as I think most of you know, there is also in the CARES Act funding for businesses, aviation and aerospace businesses. What you mainly have heard about is the funding available for passenger airlines, and there is quite a bit. There's altogether about $61 billion available for aviation businesses. $32 billion is a grant program, but Treasury has implemented that in a way that a small part of that is actually loans, and that's for payroll and paying employees. $25 billion went to the passenger airlines for that purpose. $4 billion went to air cargo, and $3 billion is available for airline contractors and subcontractors. There is also $25 billion in loans for airlines and Part 145 repair stations and ticket agents, and this is for the purpose of liquidity. Another $454 billion is available in loans for businesses of any size, with the majority of its employees in the U.S. And you've heard a lot about the Paycheck Protection Program, which has had you'd have to say a success problem, so to speak. It's already out of money. There was $350 billion allocated originally for that in the CARES Act. If you use 75% of it for payroll, then the loan was forgiven. That ran out of money actually last week. Congress is in the process of plussing that up right now with another $250 billion. The Senate's already taken action on that. It's part of a larger package of $481 billion, some for hospitals, etc. But the House is expected to act on that Thursday, and there will be more money deposited into the Paycheck Protection Program, which is for small businesses. Just a couple of notes. One, I think very important, even with all this, and it is unprecedented. What's aviation's been hit very, very hard. I think as hard as any sector, and it's different than 9/11. It's much deeper. It's much more widespread. I don't know that we've seen an impact like this. American Airlines is not wavering from its $550 million investment in its heavy maintenance base. It's only heavy maintenance base in Tulsa, and that's very welcome for the state, which of course our economy is suffering severely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll ask again any questions there.
Director Byrd? Director
Yeah.
Byrd, this is Sandra Shelton with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. It has been 15 minutes since our last recorded vote. I would ask that Andrea please call the roll if Chairman Amos would ask.
Andrea, would you please call the roll? This is Chairman Amos.
Yes, Chairman, this is Andrea Post. Commissioner Potter.
Here.
Commissioner Conway.
Here.
Commissioner Ritz.
Here.
Commissioner Amos. Chairman
Here.
Amos.
Here.
Commissioner Putnam. Commissioner Hunter.
Here.
All right.
Great.
Before I resume, Mr. Chairman, I would note that we do still have a quorum, 5 commissioners. I imagine Commissioner Putnam may be experiencing a technical difficulty, and I expect he would rejoin. He's probably still on, he can hear, but maybe having a problem with actually being heard when he speaks. I'll move quickly on to my state legislature report. As you know, commissioners, we had a number of bills that are still alive. They are still viable. The legislature's in recess right now until May the 1st. When the legislature comes back, the one duty the legislature must do is make a budget for the fiscal year. That I expect, without question, will be its primary objective when it returns on May the 1st. I do believe that policy legislation, what it will consider, will be very limited. You'll recall we had Senate Bill 1157, which would remove the aircraft excise tax cap on aircraft excise tax that comes to the commission. Senate Bill 1461 was to amend the engineer tax credits for aerospace legislation that the commission wrote and championed back in 2008. There's been some results with respect to that, and the interpretation of that by the tax commission that's been very unfavorable to those getting master's degrees in engineering programs. So we're trying to resolve that. Senate Bill 1553 provided a UAS registry for state agencies, the drones they are operating, as well as their Part 107 pilots. And Senate Bills 1489 and 1896, which we collectively refer to as the UAS Development Act. Some of that provided for some privacy protections with respect to drones, and also that we would need to know, have operators submit to us their registration for their drones and their pilot certificate, not a separate state process at all, or a permitting process or licensing process. Just provide to us copies of their federal registration and certification. I would have to say that I don't know what will exactly happen to this legislation. It'll be what the legislature wants time to do. This is obviously impacted too by what's going on with COVID-19. There is now on the table a plan to try to reopen states. That has to be taken very slowly, very deliberately, and with great respect to public health and what you see happen with your numbers as far as those infected and deaths. So that'll all have an impact on what policy legislation they take up. The first thing they do, no question, when they come back, will be to write the FY 2021 budget, which begins on July the 1st. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Stand for any questions.
Any questions? Okay, Chairman Amos here. Item 7, Grayson, is our construction grant program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Grayson Arties, Deputy Director, Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. The first item before you is item 7A. The Commission will consider approving an amendment to State Grant 3 Foxtrot 7-18-Foxtrot Sierra. The project consists of constructing a new 4,000 by 75-foot runway east of the existing runway at Bristow Jones Memorial Airport. We've talked about this before. This is a previously approved project. There's an amendment that you all will be considering today. The amendments to allow for line item adjustments to our B2 form due to liquidated damages because the project has run longer than expected. What we're requesting the amendment to do today is funding will be moved from the construction line item to the administration line item to offset the cost due to that increase in time on the project. You'll remember several commission meetings ago, we did something very similar to move a line item from construction to inspection. This is some construction administration that needs to go along with that. So that's what this project is. That's what this request is before you today. It is merely to move that item from construction cost over to the construction administration side. The amendment will not increase the Commission's previously approved share. In the attachments provided to you before, you can see the ACP page, as well as if we move the slide deck to the next slide, you can see some information about the project, and you can see a picture. And that's what we are requesting your approval for today. Staff does recommend approval for this change to the grant. I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman or Commissioners.
Chairman Amos here. Any questions? Okay, I need a motion to approve.
Commissioner Ritz, so moved.
Commissioner Putnam, second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Andrea, please call the roll.
Chairman, this is Andrea Post. Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Amos.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you. Chairman Amos here. Item 7B is the approval of a project currently identified in the ACP at Carlton Landing. Grayson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Grayson Arties speaking. Before you today for item 7B, if you will look at the agenda item, also the turn the page for the ACP pages, you will see the information before you today for this particular project. Before we get into the project, I want to go back over and do a little brief review of history. This has been a lengthy process for Carlton Landing, formerly the Arrowhead Airport, as I know many of you know it. Back in 2013, we started the process. This was the best of our 4 state park airports at the time. Now we're down to 3. It was in the best shape. It had recently had an overlay of the runway and the apron pavements. It was in probably the best location on Lake Eufaula. And so we wanted to see this airport grow and expand. However, we knew that as the commission, we could not undertake that entirely by ourselves. We couldn't go out there and put pavement down, plus hangars, plus fuel, plus put in some kind of a minor staffing to manage and operate the airport, to mow the grass and then maintain the lights and so on and so forth. So we put forth an RFP to enter into a lease and operating agreement for this airport. We got a response for that and entered into an agreement back, I believe, shortly after that in 2014 to do that, to enter into this lease agreement for the area that we're developing here today that's before you in this project. We entered into the operating agreement for the airport so that the private entity will maintain the airport, mow the grass, keep the lights on, pay the electrical bill, so on and so forth. That way, it was the thought was we're trying to split, we're trying to divide our costs. We, the state, will still have to do some work, and that's the typical infrastructure work that we do at an airport. And we were hopeful that the private entity would do what a normal private entity does, and that is kind of build the vertical infrastructure, as we like to call it in the airport world, and that is the hangars and the fuel and any kind of restrooms or terminal building that might happen, so on and so forth. It's been a long process since 2013 when we initially let the RFP out to the street. We've had several hurdles. One, just entering into an agreement to begin with Kirk Humphreys and the CLO operating company. The other hurdles that we've experienced throughout the time period, I think we've briefed you on those before, but just to recap, it was difficult to figure out the design, the final layout. This is kind of a clean sheet. We haven't had any work done out at that airport, new pavement in quite some time, so clean sheet designs are always a little bit lengthier. We had some problems working with the Army Corps, although this is the Oklahoma Department of Tourism has a long-term lease for this property. The actual owner of the property is the United States Army Corps of Engineers, so we had to get approval from them. That took us nearly a year and a half, almost 2 years. We've run into the water line issues, which I know we've discussed in the past, that a water line had to be relocated in preparation for this work, and that in itself took anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And so you follow that timeline, and here we are today. I wish if I was king for a day that I could have snapped my fingers and this would have been built 5 years ago when we were ready to do it after the design was finished. But unfortunately, sometimes there's stumbling blocks, but it's still a good project. It's still a good thing for this airport and for Southeast Oklahoma and for development around Lake Eufaula. We know that there are some great lakes in the state of Oklahoma, Eufaula being one of those. And so what is before you today is we went out, we bid the project that had been designed, our part of the project, which is the taxi lanes and the apron, the construction of what we deem normal infrastructure. And we received some good bids that were on par with what we expect to see for this area. It is a bit of a more remote area. We don't have the luxury of being near a major metropolitan area. We don't have the luxury of being near a batch plant. So the project before you was bid. We opened bids a little over a week ago. We bid 2 alternatives. One was asphalt and one was concrete. We try and do that when we were doing taxi lanes. We prefer to have those projects be built in concrete, especially for smaller taxi lanes. And the reason for that is you can't, like a runway where you have asphalt, you can't just simply go put more asphalt on top of the existing asphalt in a taxi lane. You'll reverse the flow of the drainage and put water into the hangars. So that's why we always go towards concrete. Concrete came in about 15 to 20% higher than what the asphalt bid is, and typically we see it in the 30 to 50% higher range. And so that's what's before you today. Total project cost is $773,033.30, and that'll be funded obviously strictly by state grant funds. I can tell you that the expenditures from the private development side should be equal to that between the hangars and the fuel system and all the line work and the restrooms that they're going to put in and all the sanitary sewer that will need to be installed for that. So staff is recommending approval moving forward with the DCS, the OMES, Department of Central Services Construction and Properties Division process to award a contract for the concrete portion of this project. Low bid for concrete was the number I previously reported, $773,033 and 30 cents. I will stand for any questions or comments, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Questions? Okay, thank you, Grayson. I need a motion for approval.
This is Commissioner Putnam. I so move.
Second.
Commissioner Ritz, second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Grayson. I might note one thing I forgot to mention. We are the airport sponsor for this airport. We are enacting with our statutory duties for all state-owned airports. We are the airport sponsor for the airport.
Okay, thank you. Andrea, please call the roll.
This is Andrea Post. Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Amos.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you, Chairman.
We've got item 7C, and it's another deal on Carlton Landing. Grayson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Grayson Arties presenting item 7C. You just heard what I said about the previous Carlton Landing. That was the taxi lane project that should have happened, 3, 4, 5 years ago if we hadn't run into the hurdles. So now we're coming to the project that was actually originally scheduled for this year. This is part of the unclassified non-primary entitlement funds that our unclassified airports are receiving all across the state as part of the FY 2018 FAA reauthorization bill. These unclassified airports that were in the NIFIUS received $300,000 of non-primary entitlement funds to do runway work, runway lighting work, runway pavement work, obstruction removal, so on and so forth. And we were able to convince, I believe, of our 22 unclassifieds, 18 of them to take these non-primary entitlement funds. From previous meetings, you'll understand that we were doing design of this project, and given that the hurdles that we knew were forthcoming with the taxi lane project, we wanted to see if we could do these projects in conjunction with each other, or at least run them somewhat similarly in parallel to, one, save on some costs from the inspection construction administration standpoint, but also just from the acceptability standpoint. We did not want to go do the taxi lanes, have the private entity build the hangars, get 10-based aircraft to the airport, and then a year or two later shut the airport down for this particular project. So we figured if we can do these together so that the runway is back open by the time the hangars have been constructed, there won't be any negative impacts to those new tenants. When you get a new tenant at an airport, you don't want to immediately shut the runway down on them. Usually doesn't provide the best customer service standpoint. So that's what this project is before you today. The Commission will consider approving a project. This is the project that's currently identified in the approved ACP. The proposed project is, again, because we are the sponsor, the state, we have to go through the OMES, DCS, Construction and Properties Division. The project itself is consisting of rehabilitating the runway pavement. This is just a crack seal and a seal coat, installing LED runway lights, happies, the rotating beacon. There's also some significant trees off the side of the runway that are needing to be cleared. And so that's what this project's going to do. Total project cost is about $520,000, $520,169.92. This is going to be funded partially with some FAA grant funds, the non-primary entitlements that I spoke of earlier. Obviously, that was the $300,000. We had to, per requested by FAA, we decided to knock $1 off, so we are leaving $1 on the table. That was at request of FAA for the grant administration purposes. So $299,999 is being paid for by the federal government and the non-primary entitlement funds that this airport received. $220,171 is being paid for by the commission. This is obviously part of the 10% match. This was unfortunately an FY19 grant that we received, and as such, it did not apply for the CARES Act 100% monies. We asked the question, any chance we can get to reduce our share? We're always trying to find a way to do that. Unfortunately, because this was an FY19 grant and it was under FY19 appropriations, we did not get to the 100% level. So with that being said, this project again is contingent upon executing a contract with the vendor through Construction and Properties Division over at DCS. This is a good project. Again, this is just part of the basic maintenance that the airport needs while ensuring that once the tenants and the aircraft are based at the airport, that they will have an airport that can be operated 24/7, both daytime and nighttime, and be able to operate it for many years to come. So I'll stand for any questions, but staff recommends approval.
Any questions? Okay, Chairman Amos here. I need a motion to approve.
Commissioner Conway, District 2, motion to approve.
And a second, please.
Commissioner Putnam, second.
Discussion. Okay, Andrea, please call the roll.
This is Andrea Post. Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Amos.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Andrea. Chairman Amos here. Item 7D is approval of the project that is currently identified at the in the construction program at Mangum. Grayson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Grayson Artie speaking. If you all will flip the ACP page to the Mangum ACP, and I believe we're moving the slide deck to the next, to D. This is for a project in the Commission's previously approved airport construction program at Mangum Scott Field. This was an unclassified airport. It's one of the ones that's on the cusp. It's got 8 based aircraft. They are acquiring a 9th as we speak that I'm aware of. That being said, we originally had in the ACP before the entitlement, the special entitlement ever came around, we originally had $450,000 in there to do a project at Mangum to rehab the pavement and rehab the lights. So at the end of the day, the airport construction program is going to feel a reduction. The project before you, this is just rehabbing the runway. That we're going to let the entitlements take care of the lights. $209,000 of state money, $209,765 of state money. This is a 95-5 grant. The total project is $220,806. That leaves a sponsor match of $11,041. This project is basically going to be repairing some of the wide cracks. If you've ever flown into Mangum, they've got some 3 and 4 inch cracks, and they need some repair. So, contingent upon receiving an acceptable grant application from the sponsor, staff recommends approval for this project as it's presented. I'll stand for any questions.
Hello? Hello?
This.
Yeah, I just dropped off here for a second. Hello?
Commissioner Jerry Hunter, motion to approve.
Commissioner Putnam,
Commissioner
second.
Kevin.
Hello.
Commissioner Kevin Potter, second.
Chairman Amos, this is Sandra with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. Can you hear us on the line, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
We can hear you, sir. Sir,
Okay.
we're on item 7D. We need a motion to approve request, sir.
Dropped off for a minute. I need a motion to approve, please. Chairman Amos here.
Commissioner Hunter, motion to approve.
And a second.
Commissioner Potter, second.
Any discussion? Okay, Andrea, please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Chairman Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. We've got item 7E. Chairman Amos here. Grayson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Grayson Artie speaking. This will be the last project for consideration in the Airport Construction Program grant. The project before you today is installing taxiway lights and LED guidance signs at the Talcott Municipal Airport. Total project cost is a little over $686,000, funded mostly with federal grant funds. This is the airport's taking advantage of the 100% monies. This was originally scheduled. We are providing some money to this particular project, $264,906. This is a decrease from what we had in the ACP, so we're saving some money. We got good bids. I think what we're seeing with all these projects, commissioners, is we're seeing some hungry contractors, and we do very good with hungry contractors, so very appreciative of that. As the item has been presented, staff recommends approval for this grant, contingent upon receiving an acceptable grant application.
Hello?
This is Grayson. I am done presenting.
Okay, I dropped off again. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, I'm assuming you need an approval for a motion here. So I didn't hear that last little bit. But Chairman Amos here, I need a motion for approval.
Commissioner Hunter, motion to approve.
And a second.
Commissioner Conway,
Commissioner Ritz,
second.
second.
This is Andrea Post. May I hear again who made the motion?
Commissioner Hunter, motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Hunter.
And
And a motion
Commissioner
to
Ritz,
second.
this is Director Victor Byrd. Commissioner Ritz, seconded.
Okay. Any discussion? Andrea, please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Chairman Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Andrea. Item 8.
Mr. Chairman, this is Sandra with the Aeronautics Commission. If I could just remind the commissioners and staff, please mute your phones during this call when you are not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8 is an amendment to the Aviation Education Grant for Sooner Flight Academy. Director Artie, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Grayson Artie speaking. Item number 8 before you today is a requested amendment to the aviation education grant that was approved by you all last August. As Director Byrd indicated in his remarks earlier, Several of our aviation education programs have been impacted by COVID-19. It has been a diverse set of impacts. Some events have had to be canceled completely, which is unfortunate. Some events have had to reschedule. Some events have already purchased things, and they're having to look at how to move those to later this summer or into the fall school year. And we're being as flexible as we can be while making sure that the public dollar is spent as best as possible. We've had several that have inquired about moving some of their camps to a virtual online format. And so we are receptive to some of those thoughts and some of those theories by some of our applicants. Again, this is all moving very quickly because it is kind of a spur of the moment situation. The first one that really came to us with a really good proposal of, okay, how do we move camp online is Sooner Flight Academy. That's what's before you today is a request by the OU Sooner Flight Academy to change the scope of their camp to an online virtual format using the Zoom and the Canvas platforms. The reason for that is when they were going through this consideration and back about a month ago, should we cancel our summer camps? Do we move to an online format? Do we do some other method to get to the kids? And so this is what they came to. It's been presented to us. I know Dean Bands, along with several members of her staff and the Sooner Flight Academy staff, had been mulling this over and putting together a proposal. And we visited with them last week and again this week prior to this meeting to see how that was going to turn out. And I believe that it's going to be a good program. They are moving to a virtual where they're going to host their weekly summer camp via Zoom meetings. They're going to have their instructors all on a Zoom where the students can participate via Zoom. They're going to ship the supplies to the students or provide a kind of a curbside pickup delivery option like you do with food right now. If you want to come to Sooner Flight Academy, they'll have a pre-done bag, contactless delivery. You can come pick it up for your students. Because of this, because the two primary things that really the camp did in person was, one, the flights for older students, as well as pre-flight, in-person pre-flights and getting to walk around and sitting in aircraft. Those are not being done. That reduces some of the cost of the program, so that will allow the students, or that will allow our money to be stretched further to other students. We are still, the funding mechanisms that we are looking to utilize, we're still going to do scholarships, which is what we've done in the past. Just the scholarships will be less, so therefore our money will be able to go to more students. And instead of using high school students as the teachers, they're looking at using collegiate students as what they call their navigators. And so that's what we are proposing today, is really just a requested change to the scope of what was previously agreed to, moving from an in-person camp to the online camp experience. I think we're going to see this for many camps, not just Sooner Flight Academy, and probably not just this summer, but moving into the future, we're going to see a lot of camps testing these online formats now that we all know that the online teaching world and the online training world is available, and we've been forced into such a world due to COVID-19. So I think this is going to be a great testing phase and a great opportunity for a lot of programs moving forward. I think we're going to start seeing some applicants maybe up this coming summer for online virtual training and camps for next year's programs. So with that being said, staff does recommend approval for this change in the scope of the program, but I will stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman or Commissioners.
Chairman Amos here. Any questions? Okay, I need a motion, please.
Commissioner Conway,
Commissioner
to
Ritz.
approve.
Commissioner Ritz, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Andrea, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chairman. This is Andrea Post. Commissioner Potter?
Aye.
Commissioner Conway?
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz?
Aye.
Chairman Amos?
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam?
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Chairman Amos here. We've got item 9, concluding remarks. Director Byrd, please.
This is Director Victor Byrd. Commissioners, I would be remiss. I had it in my notes, but didn't get to it. So 2 things real quick about items that have been on the agenda today. One is a number of aviation and aerospace businesses in our state have converted their processes, if you will, their capacities, and produced personal protective equipment during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mainly that has been shields and masks. One company delivered hundreds of each to the city of Enid, and there's been numerous other examples. And that doesn't come as a surprise, I know, to any of us, that our aviation community is part of our Oklahoma community, and they definitely live by the Oklahoma standard. So to them and really all our aviation businesses, I want to take my hat off. Also want to note what Governor Stitt's done with his closing fund or quick action fund, which is usually for companies that are we are recruiting to come to Oklahoma or to expand in Oklahoma. This has been converted, $6 million of that, to companies, businesses that are already here, particularly giving some priority to those that will convert their processes, manufacturing processes, to producing personal protective equipment. Those grants can range anywhere from $26,000 to I believe $50,000. I might be a little off on that. The deadline for applications for that was April the 17th. We put out a notice to all aviation and aerospace businesses in the state, notifying them of that. And that's been many aviation and aerospace businesses have asked us because there is really so much in the CARES Act to unpack. And that's why, again, the WebEx meetings have been so invaluable, and relationships with the Aeronautical Repair Station Association and National Air Transport Association. Many times I put businesses directly in touch with personnel at those respective associations, as well as NBAA, National Business Aviation Association, to get further information. That would conclude my statements with respect to this item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Byrd. Item 10 is the announcement of the next meeting, which will be on May the 20th, 2020 at 10 a.m. And I'm assuming to be determined on the location. And item 11, Chairman Amos here, is our adjournment. Get my notes here. I want to recognize Sandra Shelton and Director Byrd for last announcements.
This is Sandra Shelton, Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. I'd like to report that the public audio connection throughout this meeting has been monitored, and it's been reported to me that the connection has been maintained throughout the meeting.
This is Director Victor Byrd. The time is now 11:18 a.m., and we are ready to conclude this meeting by teleconference, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director and Sandra. Chairman Amos here. I need a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Putnam. I move to adjourn.
Commissioner Conway, second.
Okay, thank you. And Andrea, please call the roll.
Chairman, this is Andrea. Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Chairman Amos.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you, Chairman
Very
and
good.
Commissioners.
Fellow commissioners, thank you very much for your patience and time this morning. We will see you on 20 May. And Chairman Amos here, we are adjourned. Thank you.